Hi everybody, I'm Ray Hilt and welcome to another episode of the Ray2Go Show. It's a weekly video, live stream, and audio podcast that explores the human side of digital marketing. And it's my pleasure each week to moderate a panel of business and marketing pros that keep me and each other on our toes. So today we're going to be talking about social selling. What is that? Is it an oxymoron? Or is it something that we've always done since, I don't know, since Facebook was a twinkle in Mark Zuckerberg's eye? So social selling to me is a bit of a confusing term, but I'm seeing it more and more, and we're going to discuss exactly what that means to us, and maybe we can clear it up for you. And by all means, we want you to join in, and we want to hear from you. So if you're watching this on CrowdCast, you can go just down below and ask a question, and then it'll pop up, and I'll see it, and I can highlight that. Or, you know, have a conversation on the side. And if you're watching it on my site, exactly the same thing, because it's just embedded there, so I'll see whatever you do on CrowdCast. Don't forget, I'm doing this for BL's benefit as well. We have a Blab, post-show Blab after the show today, so we want everybody to join in and have a discussion about this. So let me introduce the panel before we start. So we have BL. BL's been marketing since 1996. I believe she just turned 18. She writes for Ad Age Digital Next and for her own site, whatsnextblog.com, and co-hosts her own show, Beyond Social Media, each Saturday. I have it with my lunch every Saturday. Don't miss it. It's great stuff. Oh, also, she's the best swing dancer on the panel. Next we have Jessica. Jessica is not with us, unfortunately, today because she's driving her wagon train across the Rockies to the new territory of Colorado, but she'll be with us if she can on the highway, and she'll and stop by and say hi. She's a business strategist, consultant, and speaker whose creative insights sparkle and inspire us. And unfortunately, today we won't have as much sparkle on the panel, but hopefully we'll have enough sparks. Randy is our marketing and branding expert with many years in the mad world of marketing. He's our southern ambassador who keeps us on the straight but never narrow path. And finally, we have Scott Scowcroft. He's our Rumpelstiltskin who spins gold from raw video footage from high atop his Scott treatment tower. Welcome all, and how you doing?
All good today, Ray.
Great. It's chilly here in New York. It's so wonderful.
It's nice. Fall's nice, eh?
Yeah.
Oh, isn't there a song, Autumn in New York?
Yes, it is.
And Scott, how's the weather in Seattle?
Oh, thanks for asking. It's sunny now, but it'll cloud up a little bit later, and we have rain by tomorrow, which I believe is the first day of autumn.
Oh, I know. Autumn, wow. Where did the summer go? It was so incredibly fast this year, it seems. We had a very hot one, though, so I'm not going to complain, and so far September has been absolutely beautiful. So the subject today is social selling. What is it? I'm going to cut to a card I saw when I was doing my my research for the show that, I don't know, it caught my attention, let's say. So if you thought social media was just about being social, think again. Today it's about social selling. This is from an article called Why the Future of New Business is Social Selling by Monica Zent. What do you think of that, guys?
I think it's yet another buzzword that I'm not sure how meaningful it is in the end effect, but in my opinion, all selling is social. And, you know, big brands have a very big problem trying to form relationships. I feel like Ronnie Binzer. Relationships with individual customers. You know, I mean, everything you do is social. The way you answer the phone is social. The way your website looks is social. Everything a business does is essentially representative of its culture. And so I think the idea of social selling is a little bit of an oxymoron.
I think BL's right in the using the term buzzword. I mean, it gives a lot of ideas for some content creation for a lot of marketers out there, and it also is that vein that a lot of people who delve in the world that we delve in try to run away from and try to dismiss a lot. That, you know, it's more about building relationships. It's not selling. Well, as BL just shared, it's all about building relationships, and some people are very good and some people are not. So They quickly pitch you as soon as they meet you. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind in that vein is LinkedIn. How many times have you joined LinkedIn, or even Twitter? You join LinkedIn, and as soon as you do, you get an inbox from the person inviting you to, hey, if there's anything I can ever do for you, blah, 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 and just pitch you right off the bat. I mean, so and usually those that fall in my inbox are usually deleted out pretty quick. I might not unfriend them or pass them off, but I just ignore the messages.
Yeah, and also, there's a little bit of difficulty, at least in my mind, in terms of conflating between online and social, because at the end of the day, when I think of social media and I think of online, I think of Amazon as kind of encroaching in on social media. You've got people who are reviewing products and they're putting their personal, ideas down, and then you can rate them, and the whole concept of trust and authenticity and so forth. So I really don't know if there's a sharp line between social media and, I mean, what is more selling than the Amazons and the eBays of this world?
Well, to me, social is when somebody has followed me enough to know something I wrote. Or they, I tell PR people, if you don't know my dog's name, don't pitch me. And, because if you follow me, you know my dog's name. That's all there is to it. And he has better Google juice than most of their clients anyway. But, if you're going to pitch somebody, you at least ought to have read something they wrote. You at least ought to have followed them for a little bit. And I agree with Randy. I get these things on LinkedIn. Since we're both in a group, well, you know what? I never saw you in my life. I don't know who you are. When you get these invitations to connect, and I say, did you please tell me how we know each other? And 9 out of 10 times you never hear from that person again. And, I think that if you want to be social, then you have to take it to the next level where at least you know who you're talking to.
There's an article from HubSpot, actually, and they actually go on to define what social selling is. I think the article, I have it right here, actually. It's the sales professional's go-to guide to social selling, and they define social selling as the process of researching, which talks about what you're saying, researching, connecting, and interacting with prospects and customers on social media networks, most notably Twitter and LinkedIn. Now, they didn't include Facebook, and I think I know why, but you're right. I think Twitter and LinkedIn especially are the hunting grounds for salespeople.
Well, what has happened in today's tech world and bringing that into the sales space, marketing space, advertising space, it still goes back, and y'all, Ray, you know me, Scott, been around BL's probably heard me talk about, always go back to the basics, right? You gotta look at it. And you mentioned something in the green room about an old icon that we all have followed and statements made, but it is always, whether you're a little mom and pop shop on the corner or you're Anheuser-Busch, it is always about building an affinity toward your brand. And if it's the mom and pop store on the corner, it is the husband and wife team that are in there serving, bakery or mending clothes or whatever they might be doing. It all comes out. Today's world has just taken that business store and opened it to the wide world, so you can reach out beyond that. And some people are able to grasp that. I mean, there's a lot of mom and pop stores that do not do well because their attitude towards their clients that come in, they don't do well. Others tend to do very well because you just feel, you feel welcomed, right? So, and that, I think if you take that and lay it over social, that's what you got to do. I mean, it's many years as an account manager, I had to. It was great to find out one of my clients' wife's birthday or their anniversary or something, because you could send them a token thing, and he's like, man, that's that, but you're always trying to build that relationship and recognize them and putting them before, beyond just trying to pitch them a sales pitch.
Do you ever feel that there's an alternate motive for people asking you or following you to find out those things, like, is it your birthday or what, any special events happening, whatever? Do you ever feel that they're doing that for a reason other than interest in you?
Yeah,
sure, but that's part of selling. I mean, yeah, people do that. But one thing that I noticed since tweets show up in Google search is if you search on a company's name or a person's name, you'll see their most recent tweets by some, major algorithm that Google has, like how many you see and how recent they are and all of that. But if all you see is our latest blog post, here's our press release, that company is on auto responder or whatever they're doing. They're not really participating in any kind of conversation. So if somebody from there pitches you, it's clear and simple. They have no idea who you are. It's easier to find out what people are up to by just looking at Google at this point.
Yeah, but I think today, and to go back to what Ray just asked, do you feel like people are there's a motive behind them inquiring? The savvy person pays attention because today we share so much out there. I mean, I got on here and you thought, oh yeah, hey, happy anniversary, because it's my wedding anniversary today. Shared that this morning. People, you pay attention to your circle of friends. The savvy person takes note, if that might be of some importance to them to know that, takes note of that. They don't have to ask today. So I just think that the tools that are out there today can help you if you are knowledgeable enough to not offend BL, knowledgeable enough to know that her dog is the most famous dog in New York City right now. So I mean that's.
So what you're talking about, Randy, is a skill set, and I read a book a long time ago that kind of shaped my view of the worldview, and it was called Structures of Scientific Revolution, and I think there's a parallel between that and what we're talking about today, because people who grow up in the sciences, they learn to look at the world in a particular way, and their neural paths just get locked in. They don't have an elastic brain by the time they graduate with their doctorate, and they just cannot see the world differently than what the scientific models that they've grown up with are. So I think the same thing is true in all professions, including marketing. So people who grew up in the 1950s, 60s, 70s, and 80s and 90s in terms of marketing, they might not be able to get it at all in terms of the new social media. Now, there'll be new people who are coming on the scenes, newbies who are making mistakes, but their mind is kind of elastic. And the big revolutions in science are not from the people who are in the core of the science, but they're kind of related. So someone might not be in astronomy, they might be in optics, but they will, as a result of coming into the new area, they will discover something that the others just couldn't see. And if there's an organization out there, and I'd be interested in your reaction to this, BL, if there's an organization out there that promotes people having an elastic mind like babies have and coming up with new things, it's Google. So that's a culture that they're trying to cultivate. They have 10% of their time devoted to play and so forth. They're just trying to figure out new ways of going about old things. So marketing is, like Randy says, the basics will never change, the underlying basics, but how do you get to the basics? That's what's new.
Well, one of the things that I find very difficult in working with clients is trying to get the salespeople involved in social media. I don't have time for it. I don't understand it. I have quotas. I have this. I have that, and they don't get it. And to me, the main issue is that in companies, this is why smaller companies have an advantage, in my opinion. In bigger companies, it has to come down from the top. It has to come down from the top that we are a social company, that we want to hear your voice, that we want you involved in new media, in new technology, in the places where your clients are talking. I mean, look what you can learn about people in social media. You can't just stay on Salesforce and expect that to be the end-all and the be-all of everything that you're doing in sales. So there has to be some involvement, but unless you're taught, unless you understand the benefits, you're just not going to do it.
So is this their way of compromising the salespeople? I'm thinking, we'll do what we've always done, okay, but we'll use social networks to do it on. And going back to the topic of today, the title of today actually is social selling creepy. Is it?
They think so.
Who?
The salespeople, they think it's an imposition on their time. You know, they just don't understand the concept of conversations taking place here, or that there could be value. They still think, because they haven't been here, that, you know, we're talking about what we had for lunch and things that people talked about in 2006 when social media started. And, you know, times change.
But if they're out there using social media platforms to fish, then I would imagine it's the fish who feel that it's creepy. You know, it's the, you know, like I think it was the HubSpot article that I was referring to earlier. I mean, they said Facebook was the creepiest network for social selling, because people, that was probably the most personal network, and that's where they feel really uncomfortable. People approaching them or friending them who, as you said, you don't know who they are, but they, you know, they have a company. I get requests from someone who will have in their bio, you know, sign up now for da 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 da. You know, I mean, that's creepy. I mean, like, really? I mean, that'd be like walking down the street and a car guy and saying, "Hey, listen, they got a sale on last year's models." You know.
Also, think of that now. Okay, I work down here at the local Chevrolet dealership, and I'm a car salesman, and I'm active. I see a benefit because I've been playing around on Facebook, and I start, unlike BL, I mean BL's clients, they don't see it as creepy. I see an idea that, hey, maybe I can mingle with my friends. They all know what I do, but occasionally I say, hey, you know, Ray, I heard y'all's car broke down the other day. You know, come by and see me. You know, now, is that what you're saying would be creepy, or what? Because you shared something on.
No, but there's a context there. If you've heard that my car broke down, obviously you're in my circle of friends or people that I know. But if you just came up to me out of the blue and just pulled a cold call on me and saying, "Listen, I'm a car guy and I work over here and I get this great deal on cars," that's creepy.
And what's creepy is I've got a car here, and I happen to know that your car burned up the other day, and you don't know me from Adam. That's
exactly. That's what I'm getting at, is that using those social networks to basically spy on you for that reason.
One of the points I was going to make this morning is that marketing is a little bit like dating, isn't it? I mean, social marketing is a little bit like dating, and you can date, you know, a whole bunch, but eventually, as with dating and selling, doesn't the relationship have to be consummated, you know, at least occasionally?
Who wants to take that ball?
I'll let you consummate that answer, Ray. Go ahead.
Someone else do that.
Otherwise, why market?
Well, you've got a good point. Good point, Scott. That you know, it goes back to it's just taking care of relationships. You know, if like BL says, every time you pick up the thing and there's Randy going, "Hey, I got a car for sale." Hey, next day I got. Then BL's going to say, you know, that Randy guy's he just doesn't get it. You know, I wouldn't buy a car from him if he's giving it away sooner or later. So there's understanding how you do it, and it's cultivating those relationships. And I agree with BL. These businesses, it does come from top down. I mean, if it's a social, if they want their branded accounts to be interacting and social, then they need to be showing and stepping forward and building that culture within that. If they want to step into their employees' personal lives with their social things and building that culture where they all embrace it, it starts at the top, and the leadership will dictate that.
Deborah Rock brings up a good point in the comments on CrowdCast, is that, you know, although GPS location is good for apps such as maps and whatnot, it's not good for creepers on social media, and that's just another way for them to keep an eye on us. And I think that's the issue here, is not so much selling, I guess, you know, because everybody's, you know, is in marketing or has a business and they want to sell, obviously. It's just how they do it, and using social platforms to gather intelligence on us, as it were, and then to use that to, I guess, it's inauthentically pretend they're our friends, you know, open up relationships for the express purpose of selling something.
Yeah, I think the new iOS update has an even more creepier location thing. If you turn it on now, I saw that yesterday. I was like, well, that's new. But anyway, go ahead, Bill. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Well, we are all here to make a living, so in a certain aspect of this, of course people are going to pitch you in, of course they're going to sell. The question is, are they going to do it in a way that sounds like they're stalking you, or in a way that sounds like they know a little bit about you and they think they might be able to help you? There's a difference, but I think you have to distinguish between big and small companies, because I can't see how a company with 100,000 employees could be as socially involved with individuals as one with 20. So unless you do what, Dell, for example, did and have 15,000 people on social media, which is social selling at its utmost. But, there's a difference. So to me, you look at the culture of the company, and that becomes clear from the way that they involve themselves in social media. And then if they pitch something, you feel like they're human, and that's what we were talking about last week. Like, are they speaking in a human voice? And if they're not speaking in a human voice, it doesn't matter if they pitch us or not, because we're not going to respond to them.
Well, and do they pitch us something that they actually have assumed, or through the research that they've done, that we actually need, that would help us? And that's, by giving us content that would help us find a solution to something, and then say, oh yes, well, if we want to take a step further, there's a professional level to our app that will help you do this. I mean, I don't mind that so much, but again, it's how you do it. And I guess this is what this is all about, is how you do it. Go ahead, Scott.
Isn't the bright line that that we invite someone in terms of our social media, we invite someone. Well, if we invite a company in, that means that they've been active enough that we've been able to scope them out, we've been able to figure out, and that there's a need. I mean, if I want plumbing, or if I want electrical services or something like that, I will go online, and if there are companies that are locally that have been very active in social media, and I can see their footprint and reactions they've had with other customers and whatnot, then I'll approach them. I might like them on some platform or something and establish the personal relationship. But it's because I initiated it. If they push it on me, if someone comes to my front door and knocks on it and says, hi, I'm a house security company and we'd like to, I'll boot them out, because they're probably casing in my place because they want to steal something from me. What's the difference between that and social media? But if I want to install a security system in my house, then I'm going to go to social media to figure out which company I want to invite into my life.
That's a really good point, and that's very similar to what I'm trying to express, is that you're looking at the way they present themselves, and you decide that in that way whether you would ever buy anything from them. But it doesn't have to be direct to you. It just has to be how that company presents itself in general, and are they involved, and are they responsive? And if they are, then that changes my view of them, and I would imagine most people's view.
And if they do a great job, I'll be grateful, and I'll go on their social platform, and I'll give them recommendations, and bam, that's the way the system is supposed to work.
Well, it's kind of like how we build our professional or brand pages on either Google Plus or Facebook, right? I mean, we get people to know us personally, and then eventually we bring them over to our page where the business is done. But you don't do the page first. You don't go out there and try to build a relationship with a brand. You put yourself out there first. And we're going to close off, because I want to close off with the difference between social selling and social marketing, because in the early days, we'll all remember the rainbows and ponies and unicorn period of social media, where it was blasphemy to even smell like anything was selling on social media, right? It had to be social, and it was all about hugging and Care Bears. It's changed a lot since then. Now the platforms have become basically media, marketing media. Is there a difference between social marketing and social selling? Brandy, I'm going to ask this to you specifically at first, because you've been in that kind of business for a long time.
Well, there could be a difference between the two. Actually, people have always confused marketing and selling together in some aspect, but marketing is developing a overall general plan to to put a product into the marketplace. How are you going to do that? And you develop the different switches, the different kicks, the different items in the quiver that the salespeople and others can use to put that product in the marketplace. Those are the salespeople. They use what you have developed in the overall aspect of it. So that's marketing. So to go back to the previous question that we were talking about, and like BL says, big companies sitting there using, let's just say Facebook, and let's say a small company like Coca-Cola, right? Coca-Cola is, everybody sees the Coca-Cola ads. Everybody knows that when you see the polar bear ads, those are the Christmas ads for Coke. And, you know, I mean, even Mad Men played off on the Coke, and that's a big iconic thing. They are constantly, well, let me just back, do they really need to do all that? I mean, they're the #1 product in the world, right? They don't really need to do all that, but they're constantly doing it to build relationships, to build goodwill, you know. And the one that gets my heart every time, that I just absolutely love, and because of that, I consume their product, and that's Anheuser-Busch, the Clydesdales, right? Those commercials just win you over every time. I mean,
Poppies always do it.
Think about that. And in a short story, when InBev bought Anheuser-Busch, an iconic American company, anybody, you know, Anheuser-Busch owned, what was it, SeaWorld and Busch Gardens and all those various theme parks, and they said, we're not in the theme park business. So they immediately put that up for sale, but they said, but we keeping the horses. They knew that brand, and just like Budweiser, that's such an iconic brand; it'll never go away. It won't happen. So I mean, that is marketing. That is marketing. Now, when you come back to sales, sales is your guy going up against, you know. And I did hear this the other day. InBev was fixing to buy Miller Brewery too, so that's going to be one hell of a mix up there. Because you have Miller Lite and Bud Light now together, so I guess they're all the same beer and they're just a different can. But
That's what we say about American beer anyway. So
yeah, but that's true. But I see it as a hiccup. People just get the idea of sales and marketing. Marketing, go back to the corner store. The guy building a relationship with the people in there and coming in to buy his bakery goods, right? He's keeping his store clean. He's making sure his stuff is displayed right. He's careful of what the name has. That's all marketing and branding. Okay, when somebody comes in there and goes, "Man, do you have those butter biscuits?" and he goes, "No," but he better be able to sell him something else, or he's going to lose that client. That's the sales aspect of it.
Good.
And the thing that's confusing about social media is that social media has, or at least the internet has, removed geography as the boundary or the barrier. So you have the mom and pop operation on the corner, and you know, by definition, they had a service area of so many blocks. But remove that so that your service area is just as valid 600 miles or 6,000 miles as it is 6 blocks from you. That throws in confusion of, well, how do I do what Randy was just talking about, but in this new environment?
Well, then you market locally. I mean, you don't try to market.
Well, wait a minute now. What do you do? Scott knows the answer to that. But you got your storefront now is your website. How does it look? You know, your brand image. What message are you conveying all the time? Are you always saying, "Hey, BL, you want to buy a car? BL, you want to buy a car?" Or are you talking about, you know, the latest, you know, neat Apple just announced that they're bringing the, you know, their driverless car out in 09 or 19 or whenever it is, so the world will be waiting with bated breath for that. I mean, that's what you do today. Is you're taking care of that corner store, but in a global aspect.
Sure. Why should I treat my client any differently if my client is 6 blocks away from me as opposed to 3,000 miles away from me? I can treat them exactly the same way if I know the tools, and that's why streaming video is so important, because if I use streaming video, I have more of those touch points in that, you know.
Another old way to look at it, and going back to the basics, you are always selling. Everybody is always selling. I mean, you're selling yourself. You're selling your product. You know, you got to be if you're in the business of making money and you're not a servant of another company, you are selling. And if you're a servant of another company, you're selling too. You just might not be, you know, that into it. But if you're out there, you're always selling. An image is, you know, first impressions matter.
Well, I think it's sorry, no, it's from because we're at the very end, but I think it's a matter of tone, you know, tone and volume. I mean, yes, we may be always selling, but not always consciously, not always aggressively. I think that.
Well, that's what I mean. I didn't mean that you're always saying buy. I just mean that you need to, whatever you're doing. If you're sitting there having dinner with somebody and you're talking about their wedding, you're still selling yourself, right? You're still because you're building that relationship.
Well, I want to go back to what you said about Coca-Cola and how they don't have to do social media, but they do. Coca-Cola and Pepsi were among the first major brands that did experiment with social media. And at the beginning, if you remember, there was the Mentos and Coke experiment. And at the beginning, Coke said, we want people to drink it, not play with it. And, you know, but Mentos took off big time because they embraced the two guys with the squirting Coca-Cola, and they've come a long way since then. They have to do social media because their customers are there, so and they have to have touch points.
We'll end it there because you're right. I mean, because that's where customers are. That's just the reality of the world. It's social media is here, and you have to be there. It's a matter, I guess, how you behave there that matters. And with that. And with that,
let me throw this in there real quick.
Okay.
The difference today, and it's no different than the difference today is if they're creepy to you, you can block them, you can get rid of them.
There you go. There you go. Word of advice from Randy. So, having said that, we're at the end of our show, but don't forget, we have a post-show blab. How's this, BL? In your face enough?
Perfect.
Okay. So join us. We're going to take our gloves off, put our feet up, and have a chill and carry on the conversation in the Blab room, which is at blabim.com/Ray Hill. So hopefully you can join us. And thank you very much for joining us today. It was a conversation as usual that could go on for hours. And I'm thinking now next week something came to mind about, I don't know, this thing called native advertising and how does that fit in selling. So take care, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.